Good Tuesday afternoon, everyone. Before you come to chat, please hit that thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this video. And there's Laura. Welcome in, Laura. Good to see you. So it's a pretty sunshiny day here, but it is cold. It sure beats the rain, so it's rather nice out there. So that's a blessing. Hey, Brian, honey, welcome in. Good to see you. So I went yesterday and played beach volleyball in the warm pool, and I had a little kid behind. He was beside me, and he just about drowned me. And he knows I don't like to get my hair wet, and I look like a drowned rat when I left. But hey, it's all part of the game, right? I'm a pretty good volleyball player, guys. Since high school, I haven't lost my touch. But we normally have fun, and I had to correct. I think he was about 12, and he kept saying, "You want a piece of me?" And I had to keep correcting him. And I said, "Where's your mom?" He goes, "Why?" I said, "Behave." So yeah, sometimes these kids, you got to teach them some. I know kids are competitive, but he didn't have to drown me. And I'm like, oh my God, look what he done to my hair. But yeah, we usually have a good time. It's a warm pool. They have a cold pool and a warm pool, and I don't do the cold pool, so we played volleyball. And I got my angel Laura, and I'm wearing it, so right there on the old torque. And we usually have a pretty good time. But yeah, he was. I couldn't. I was on the back line with him, and he was diving across, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like, I said, I'm the. What did I say to him? I said, I'm the master, and you're the sensei. So, and he goes, it's mostly older people, and he said, well, what's going on over there? I said, we're 4 times your age. And I said, oh, so am I. And look at me. So, he was pretty polite, but you know how kids are. Thank you, Brian. I pulled my hair back. It's about all I could do after he drenched my hair yesterday. I bet you if looks could have killed, I went like that. I started set him up on the bank, but I had mercy on him. But anyway, thank you guys for coming in. I really appreciate it. But, I'm competitive too. I don't look like I would be good at any sports, but I'm good at volleyball. But yeah, took me back to my good old high school days. And yeah, I'm wearing the red. So my husband, he took some packages off to UPS, and it's like they both go to the same person. So we got that's being taken care of. So that's a good thing. Uh, Guys, I want us to continue to pray for Minnie. I don't really know her situation. She hasn't really said anything. So let's keep her in our prayers. And, anyone else, Brian, has a sciatica, and we all need prayers. Sometimes we need to, pray for people because, people are, times now are not easy at all. So, not going totally off the track. I spoke with a person from that Small Business Association, and she goes, well, we need this and we need that, showing every transaction. They got my paperwork. I don't know what they did with it. And then they want everything itemized, so we got to send some more paperwork to them. And I told the lady, I said, you know what? I said, if I would have received some kind of a statement or bill from you guys over 2 years ago, I said, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. So, but you just get tired of it. And then one person says, yes, you have everything. The other person says, we need this. So we'll find out. And she linked me to a link where that I could find out the particulars of what happened. You're welcome, Brian. I said I want to see the loan. It was done online. I said I want to see the loan application. I want to see what bank was it done in. Did the bank double check the license of the person that got the money? I want to know all those things because they certainly ask a lot of me. So it's through some kind of act through the government but they won't tell you who did it. So I want to know what bank it was, what state it was in. Did they double check the license? I want to know all of it. And then she gives me the email and it said domain not known. So after I get this one set was already sent to him. I don't know what they did with it. And the second set, I'm going to call her and I'm going to say, you need to give me a good email to this place because I want to know, I deserve answers, So I'm going to call her back. And I said, well, this link does not work. And I did it twice and it just didn't, it didn't go through. So, and this is the government we're talking about. Tell them you want to press charges on a person, so they need to give up the names and lawyer can ask it too. Yeah, Laura, I thought, it kind of infuriated me that, we have an attorney. And I said, you mean to tell me that I've been put over the road by someone who stole my identity, which is illegal, and you can't tell me who done it? I said, I'm a tax-paying citizen here. So here they said, well, they'll trace the IP address. I was told by someone that anyone at any time can change their IP address. So I don't know what they're going to do. Yeah, I said, if you ask me, I said, the person belongs in prison. When you steal someone's identity, that's their life. And, I want a shot at them. I said, I'll make sure they go to prison. I said, because I won't shut up. But I was really, really upset. But I do have a thing where that was one of the things that I was asking for was the IP address. So they don't have the right to tell me that I do not deserve to know the person who done that. They can't do it. And I will call my attorney and we'll have a conversation and I'll sick her on them. So, I do have the right to know it was a crime committed against me, So here's another thought, when they catch the person who done it, do they have a police report done? Probably not. And they'll probably never find them, guys, because they let so much time go past. But that's the status. So they'll be more outgoing. A total. They want to know for what, they're like I said, you're not going to find your money. I said, we'll send it to you, but I said, I guarantee you won't find it. I said, I know. Oh, Brian had a charge put on a card he had. I know, Brian, it's terrible about the way people do. I told the lady, it seems like the criminals have more rights than the innocent, which is totally wrong. And you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent. It usually doesn't work that way. But how much was it, Brian? Usually when people get a hold of people's card information, they start out by going relatively small, and then when that goes through, that's when they hit it again, unless your bank stops it. And a lot of banks will, so that's what they do. They start out little bitty, And when they find out that it went, then they'll go even further. So it's always good to make sure that those ends are tied up. Now, my husband, well, our bank over here in town, man, they'll shut something down on a hunch. And oh no, Brian, did they catch it? But it's terrible. I know a person that she had her debit card in her purse, and someone had a device, and when they walked by her, it scanned it. So they had all of her information. And another things to watch out, guys, for especially at Walmart is they put skimmers on. They'll stick it up, up on there. Good, Brian. And you have to really, if you do not see a light on that little thing you run your card through, do not run your card. Someone has put a skimmer on that. It happens a lot at gas stations, and you just have to be. It's kind of scary to know that one swipe or one when you insert that chip, that boom, someone's got your information, and it's really scary. That's good. I know a lot of banks, man, they'll shut something. This one in town will shut it down on a hunch, which is a good thing. But anyway, so as we know, this is Easter month, and it's all about the death and resurrection of Christ and his ascension into heaven on that third day. And I thought that would be a good subject because there's a lot of information in the Bible and accounts of what happened, before his ascension and after his ascension. And I thought it would be a good idea. So we'll go slow at it because I know Easter's not till what, 2 weeks away, one week away. But as we did the crucifixion also goes hand in hand with the ascension. I will know what it was tomorrow or Thursday. Well, I hope so, Brian, and we'll be praying about that because there's nothing more disturbing than someone's money being unjustly taken, and it happens a lot. And it's just Centra is, well, that's my bank account, and they give you this little card thing that when it's in there, no one can scan through anything and get your information. And it's such a shame that we live in a world where we have to be very conscious of things like that. And it's when we're off guard is when we get it. Oh, my second time this year. My daughter, hers has been hit 2 or 3 times. One time they was in a shoe store and they was getting ready to purchase like $700 worth of shoes, and the bank flagged it, and they contacted her, and the Centra that we bank with was inside Walmart where she works. So naturally they called her over. She goes, well, I've been working all day. How can I be in Indianapolis? And they knew, but someone was trying to get $700 worth of shoes at a shoe carnival or some kind of shoe place. But I think hers got hit about 3 times. But that's pretty. It's pretty scary to know that you could fall victim very easily and not. And that's what those banks are for. If they see something suspicious, they are. They'll tell you because they're the one who has to put the money back in there because they're all insured, FDIC. So I'm telling you, it's scary, isn't it? It's like you get one thing straightened out and here comes another. But anyway, I think we're going to start in the book of Acts where it does start to speak about the ascension. Acts chapter 1, starting in the 6th verse. Therefore, when they had come together, they asked him, saying, Lord, will you at this time restore the kingdom to Israel? And he said to them, "It is not for you to know times or seasons which the Father has put in his own authority." Now, this goes right back to, I believe it's in Revelations, that in the end of time, no one knows the time or the hour. So I think that we can reference that to this seventh verse here, because that is so true. "But you shall receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you shall be witnesses to me in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria and to the end of the earth." So it goes on to about verse 11. "Now when he had spoken these things while they watched, he was taken up, and a cloud received him out of their sight. And while they looked steadfastly toward heaven as he went up, behold, two men stood by them in white apparel, who also said, 'Men of Galilee, why do you stand gazing up into the heaven? This same Jesus who was taken up from you into heaven will so come in like manner as you saw him go into heaven.'" So that means, when, there's many accounts in the Bible about Jesus' return and how he will come, and he will come just as it says, you know, on a cloud. So there's so many, there's so many, sometimes your mind goes back to relatable things in the Bible, even from other pages. Okay, then they return to whoops, I think I read too far. So there's that, and even, at the Last Supper, he told his disciples that he would be returning, and I forget what part of the Bible it's in, but when he appeared to them, they were afraid. Even after he told them, I'm coming back, they were afraid, like it was, a ghost situation. And then Jesus put his hand up with the wound in his hand, and one of the disciples put his finger into the hole, and then they fell down and worshiped him, because I guess it just kind of woke him up. But even the disciples didn't believe it was him, when in fact it was. So there's some more things in Luke back here, 24 verses 50 and 53. So we'll turn to that. But Jesus' ascension into heaven was a pivotal moment in the life of mankind. That meant that no one that believes in him would have to suffer that second death. And it was, he paid it all. He paid the price for us, and this is the time of the year where people remember all the events that took place up to his ascension into heaven. Let's see, Luke 24. Let's see, Luke 24, 50, verses 50 and 53. Let's see, I think I turned too far. Let's see, Luke 24 verses. Well, okay, Luke 24 verses 50 through 53. So, and he led them out as far as Bethany, and he lifted up his hands and blessed them. Now it came to pass, while he blessed them, that he parted from them and carried up into heaven. And they worshipped him and returned to Jerusalem with great joy, and were continually in the temple praising and blessing God. So that, it's, bottom line, God does keep his promises. And just like he ascended into heaven and returned down to earth, he will come again to receive his children in Christ. which are Christians. So yeah, it's kind of the same. And then there's some more in Mark. After the Lord Jesus had spoken to them, he was taken up into the heaven, and he sat at the right hand of God. Then the disciples went out, preached everywhere, and the Lord worked with them and confirmed the word by the signs that accompanied it. So, but yes, we all know that he was, well, what they refer to as Good Friday was when he was crucified, and, darkness fell upon the earth, and the curtain was the whatever that it was torn from top to bottom. And it's I think after that a lot of people realized that he was indeed the Son of Man, and that you know that I think in their own way they knew he was coming back. They just kind of you know but yes, that what he did for us was one of the greatest things that was ever given to mankind, the opportunity to not die that second death, but be with him in eternity, and that's quite a thing that, that this, as we live in a world where there's turmoil and there's things, darkness, and, we have to learn that we'll be tempted and we'll be attacked by Satan and people. And we all know that Satan does work through people, and it's not easy, but we have to be patient to know that what we're doing and what God expects of us will not be for nothing. He has a plan, that we don't. Eternal life is a very great gift, and it only comes through Jesus Christ. And that's why we have to remain steadfast in our beliefs and our actions. And sometimes it's hard. There we have Jesus. He was persecuted, and he did nothing. But there was some people that felt like that he was going to gain control of people, because after all, he did see all the followers that he indeed had. So, isn't that the way the world is? When you're a Christian person, you're persecuted for what you believe in, and you're singled out where you have did nothing but love people and help people and do as we were commanded by God. And it seems like sometimes we have a target on our back, and like I said, Satan is in the midst, and he sends people to cause things in our lives and cause us to want to seek revenge and all kinds of things. But as we know, vengeance is definitely the Lord's. It's not for us to take upon ourselves, because there again it says, thou shalt not judge lest you be judged. So we have to be careful with things like that. But it is hard to live in a world that's full of darkness. And I've been in situations where my faith was really tested. And I think God, in a way, he can stop anything, but sometimes he allows things to happen to see how we're going to react to it, and see if where our heart is. And he, there again, in trial and tribulation, which we will have trial and tribulation, but it's just something that in human form that we have to deal with. Much like Jesus, look at what he had to go through, and, and still mocked. And that's one thing that the Lord says, he will not be mocked. And he went through so much, but, he had a divine plan. He was sent by God, and there was a method there that, he knew what he had to do. And he depends on us to, follow these rules, these commandments in this Bible, and that there is no, you can't straddle the fence on a command, but it is very clear on what it is, and you just can't straddle the fence, and sometimes we are placed in situations with not so nice people, and it makes it hard. And the fact that we're supposed to love one another, but it's kind of hard to love people who you feel like are kind of out to get you, so to speak. But you have to, and pray for them, because only God can bring about change in a person's heart. Because they have to know that. And some people do not believe in God, and I cannot fathom why not. You look out here on this earth, and there's these mighty rivers and these beautiful oceans, and everything like that. And how can people think that there's not a God when God made everything? He made the oceans and the rivers and the streams and everything. And sometimes theoretically, you notice how you've seen programs on TV where people try to explain, well, this happened because of this in the environment, when it was God that was responsible. And they're constantly trying to debunk what his, the work that he had done, but, well, you've heard of it, the holy, that the cup that he drank from the Last Supper. They've been looking for that, and I don't think they'll ever find it. They've been looking for the shroud that he was wrapped in. That'll never be found. They keep looking for Noah's Ark. That will never be found. And it won't. I think, maybe I have a vivid imagination, but I think in the end of days, when Christ comes back, all these things will surface as a kind of, as, of course, that's just me. It's not proven. I think that all these artifacts will surface to as kind of a reminder of the past and what, of course, I could be totally off, but I don't think man will ever find those items because it's not meant to be. All of those items are very sacred and holy, and I don't think that. And another reason why I think they'll never be found is because, as people, a lot of times men and women want to take the glory for finding that item instead of what was connected to it. Look, I found this, that, and the other. And see, God knows that. They won't say, oh, I found this and this, what, they won't do it. They're on really a quest that it's never going to happen. I guarantee you, because those things were not meant to be found in the first place. But, we think about so much, this time of year, usually at Easter time, the churches are full, and Christmas, those are the two big holidays. Well, hey, Ginger, welcome in. It's just not, if you can only acknowledge the Lord, though, 2 days out of the year, well, that's sad. We're supposed to pray and be diligent and pray without ceasing. I mean, we should acknowledge him every day, not just in the churches are loaded, that day. So it's like they remember the day and the significance, but they don't go to the basis that's in this Bible. And Ginger, are they digging up Noah's Ark? Are you sure it's Noah's Ark? That will be interesting, Ginger. I never, wow, because that happened. Noah's Ark. I didn't see that neither. Huh. Now I'm curious. And how the thing of it is, like the shroud that he was wrapped in before he was put in the tomb, and they found this outline of a man, and but it just takes away. It's for not real. Google it. Big news. Oh my goodness. Do they? Here's another thing. Do they really know that that's Noah's Ark? Do they? I mean, I'm not doubting your word, Ginger, but do they really know that's Noah's Ark? Is it really true? Oh my goodness. So, no, I haven't seen that. Wow, you would think, I don't know what wood that Noah's Ark was constructed from. I'm not really for sure, but I do know it spoke of it. Oh my goodness, I hate to Google something. So, in Turkey, Google it. I'm curious. I'm going to look. I can't help it. I'm too curious. Just for yourself. Google it. Was Noah's Ark found? Okay, let's see. Now I'm curious. A narrative through which God spares Noah from his family. Okay, archaeologists think that they may have found the real Noah's Ark. Now, let me go to that. I'm curious. Not that I'm doubting your word, Ginger. I'm just really okay. Go away. So it says archaeologists think they may have found the real Noah's Ark. A mountain in Turkey shows evidence of human activity in the area around the time the biblical flood is said to have taken place. So that is the picture that is being shown right there. Oh, wow. Archaeologists believe that they may have discovered the final location of Noah's Ark on Turkey's Mount Ararat. Soil samples from atop the highest peaks in Turkey reveal human activity and marinic animals. Dating of the rock and the soil from the location match with biblical timing of Noah's Ark. Researchers form a trio of universities in Turkey and the United States that have spent roughly a year analyzing the rock and soil in the famous Drupanar Formation on Mount Ararat, the highest mountain in Turkey. They believe that the boat-shaped site may hold the ruins of legendary Noah's Ark. The biblical account of Noah tells of God instructing Noah to build a giant ark to spare his family and pairs of animals from an impending flood meant to destroy evil and wickedness running rampant on the earth. Noah's Ark is said to have come to rest on the mountains of Ararat following a 150-day flood about 5,000 years ago. Researchers now believe they found evidence of human activity near the boat-shaped formation in the mountains from between 5,500 and 3,000 BC. So, let's see. I can't Faruk Kaya, AIC Vice Rector Professor, says that analyzing rocks and soil from the uniquely shaped area on the mountain shows human activity in the region timed to the years following the flood in the legend of Noah's Ark. In terms of dating, it is stated that there was life in this region as well. Kaya saying, according to the Daily Mail, this was revealed in the laboratory results. Human activity, however, does not a biblical account prove. The Duperar information that has been put forth as a potential ark resting place for many years has received extensive attention from those hoping to find Noah's Ark. Despite the hype, the archaeologists have consistently reaffirmed over the years that the formation of natural, not the result of petrified shipwreck, and that there is no geologic record of a global flood like the one described in the religious text. My point exactly. There was a flood. See, this is where people take things. Let me read that again to make for sure. Formation is natural, not the result of a petrified shipwreck, and that there is no geological record of a global flood like the one described in religious texts. Now, I don't believe that. Some believe that a more local flood may have been possible, but that is also debated. The team says it's currently possible to say that Noah's Ark itself was at the Duraprinar site, but the dating is not possible to say that the ship is here. Frank Faruk-Kaya, one of the researchers on the project, said, according to Turkish news publications, it's Hurriyet, Hurriyet, we need to work for a long time to reveal this. In the next period, we will agree to carry out a joint study under the leadership Andrew University. 3 universities will come together, their work in the field in the future. So, anyway, we know that there was a flood of biblical proportions because it's in the Bible. That's what I'm talking about. You just can't take something, it said right there that they claim that there was no flood like there was a flood like that. As you go back and read about Noah's Ark, where where there was a great flood and it wiped out all of humanity. So I don't know. See, that's science for you. They're looking at every angle but the right angle, and that's God. And if they will open their Bible, they probably don't believe in God, and read that in their Bible about that flood, because that was very true. I'm not for sure where that's at, but I'm pretty sure there was a flood. And they're debunking that. Well, there was no flood that they even said it in there. And I'm like, oh my. I mean, we absolutely know by reading in our Bible that there was a flood and it just engulfed the everything. And everything was swept away, and Noah was directed by God to build the ark because it was to be destroyed with water. So, I mean, they say they found something, and then they try to debunk something that it says plainly in this Bible about a flood that destroyed. We're talking about, God, destroyed the earth with the flood, and it talks about it in this Bible. So that was kind of debunked. I mean, that's my opinion. Everybody has their opinion. But from what I read, them saying that there was not, I'm like, we all know that there was a flood. Read to carry out. Let's see. But I had to read that again to make sure I was right. Let's see here. But as I said, we all remember the story of Noah's Ark, that, they can't tell me there wasn't no flood when I read it in the Bible, and I believe every word As much cost? Yeah. So maybe they found it and maybe they didn't. Maybe a lot of it's, but yes, there was absolutely a flood. Now, what part of the Bible is that in? But yeah, that's where man will take something, a fact, and they'll twist it to where it matches their narrative, and that's what's happened in this. I mean, that's my opinion. I mean, I've been wrong before, but I really think that that's what's happened here. I mean, it's from what I read, but as we know, there was a great flood. Let's see. Yeah, there was no of a global flood like one described in religious texts. Well, I believe the Bible, and I believe there is a flood, and I believe two of each kind of animal went on the ark. But sometimes, I mean, wouldn't that be a fantastic find? I mean, wouldn't that would be the find of the century, you know? But it's hard to say, you know. But that's what I believe, that there in fact was a flood of great proportion. But anyway, I'm not for sure. Let me Google this. See what kind of wood that the ark was constructed out of. What kind of wood was Noah's ark constructed from? Let's see. Gopher wood. God gave Noah specific instructions on how to construct. Aha, here we go. Let's see. Gophers. The Hebrew word gopher is used only once in the Bible, when God commanded Noah to make yourself an ark of gopher wood. And in Genesis chapter 6, verse 14, because no one knows what gopher wood is. Yeah, it is interesting. Noah obviously knew. The King James Version, the New King James Version, and the New American Standard Bible and English Standard Version simply transliterate the Hebrew and leave it at gopher wood. And it says many modern scholars consider gopher wood to be cypress because cypress wood is extremely durable. Oh, wow. We learned something new. Let's see. And it says very likely that gopher wood doesn't exist today. Countless plants have become extinct since the time of Noah. In fact, we know very little about the kinds of wood available to Noah. No one living has seen the and Antediluyin. I can't say that word. Let's see. Also, the geography of the pre-flood world was without a doubt vastly different from ours today. So no one can say exactly where Noah lived. There are only speculations. Attempts to identify gopher wood as cypress or any other known tree based on Noah's supposed location. Ignore the flood destroyed the entire face of the earth. I mean, there had to be, to destroy everything, it had to have been a major. And it says, it goes on to talk about Noah's Ark. Some researchers believe the word gopher doesn't refer to a species of wood at all. Rather, it refers to a process utilized to prepare the wood in ark's construction. This is seen in Sebelius translation, squared beams. Some archaeologists have suggested that gopher may have referred to a lamination process. hmm, made necessary by the enormous size of the ark. Gopher may have referred to a lamination process. Huh. To add more speculation to the meaning of gopher wood, there is even disagreement as to the true spelling of the Hebrew word due to the similarity between A, G, and K in Hebrew alphabet. Huh. It said in Genesis chapter 6, verse 14 would read, make yourself an ark of a pitched, waterproofed wood. Make rooms in the ark and cover it inside and outside with pitch. So, to me, like they said, talked about the wood that was available back then, waterproof. Make yourself an ark of pitched, waterproof wood. That's interesting. Huh. Let's see here. And it says, on this day, let's see, it says, behold, even I, am bringing the flood of water upon the earth, but I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall enter the ark. So starting in Genesis chapter 6, 17 through 22, there was judgment coming, but God's grace provided a way of escape. God pledged himself to save all those who believed in his word. The plan of salvation today also involves a faithful response to God. So let's talk about, so it was Noah and his wife and two of each animal. And I think there was one or two other people, and I'm not for sure who they were. But wouldn't that be, no wonder he had to destroy the earth. Look how many people were not taking heed of his commandments. And only those, what maybe Noah's wife and maybe his children were on there. So maybe that accounts for the others. But how terrible that only this handful of people, observed the Bible and stuff like that. No wonder the earth was destroyed. I mean, it must have been terrible for him to do that. So, okay. But I don't know. It's, okay, here's something interesting. In John chapter 3, 16 through 18, he is our ark of salvation. I know, Ginger, it is way worse because there's so many other things to get into. And deliverance from God's judgment is available only in him. So switching to Acts chapter 4, verse 12, the ark of Noah's day provided shelter from the storm and subsequence for all who were inside. Now in Genesis chapter 6, verse 21, God anticipated and met every need. Just so today Christ not only saves us from judgment, he also satisfies and meets our spiritual needs. That's very true. But yeah, that's really interesting about the ark and what it was made out of. And so they're saying that the ark was made from cedar wood, which makes sense. That would have been plentiful back in those days. Maybe that was one of the source of wood there. Let's see. Yeah, it was made of gopher wood, and but that is interesting. But we know by the Bible that indeed there was a great flood, and now they're saying that it's not. That's not true. I mean, are they saying that what is printed in between these pages is a lie. It never happened. I don't go for that. It doesn't make sense. And it just relates back to Ginger. Thanks for telling us about that because it was really interesting. It just relates back to at every turn, man tries to get away from the person that was really responsible, which is God. And they have all these scientific synopsis and things like that to explain things. But, you know, but evidently gopher wood was evidently waterproof or whatever. It didn't hold water like most woods do because of something that occurred naturally in the wood. But that's what I'm saying. The Darwin theory. Now, there's no way we came from no monkey. Now, come on, gee whiz, and they're teaching this stuff in school. That's the sad part. So, if you take little Johnny to church and he'd say, "But mom, we were formed from an ape." And see, it's really hard because society teaches our children one thing, and then we got to turn around and straighten it out. But it's really sad, and that's what's wrong. That we have really veered from. I was thinking that it would have to waterproof. Yeah, something that a type of wood that didn't absorb, back in the day, and I guess it totally made sense that it was the type of wood it was. But couldn't you imagine how massive this ark was to hold two of every animal from A to Z? And I think it was Noah and his wife and his children, I believe. Just think of how massive that was. After all, these animals were God's creation. An animal, he didn't want to get, do away with his creation. That's God created that. So, that's how there was male and female, and they had babies, their babies had babies, so on and so forth. But it always I don't know, it's pretty a question in my mind is this is you know it's got, from what I understand in the Bible, that I don't know if God is, I don't think, this is my opinion, I don't think God's going to destroy the earth. I think man is. And as you can see, there's a lot going on. And, there's a part in the Bible in Revelations that it talks about fire encircling the earth. Well, I think that's nuclear warfare, if you ask me. So I don't know if God will destroy the earth or it will be man. See, that's something we don't know. Does anyone have any theories on how, is God going to destroy the earth? I read somewhere in the Bible that God would not destroy the earth. Is man going to destroy it? He's sure working on it right now. They're we're finding what they call these concrete jungles everywhere. I mean, there's no, trees and stuff are good for putting oxygen into the air, and we have to really but I think man will destroy himself. I really do. And from what's going on in the news with these trade wars and stuff. But my husband, he's the flooding in Kentucky. We need to pray for those people in Kentucky and the other surrounding states that are having flooding. My husband works for Ford's and they deliver cars and stuff by train. They don't put theirs on a car rack, So there's a tremendous amount of flooding that they can't even get the cars in there. Yeah, war after war, and boy, are they still going on. It's like it's never ending. Yeah, war after war. Yeah, there will be wars and rumors of wars, and I tell you, it's coming to pass. It's really scary, but yeah, we kind of scary, guys. So they couldn't deliver the cars to Ford. So my husband's off till about the 11th, but it, excuse me, but there's some major flooding in Kentucky. And if you would see some of those pictures and the flooding, and you can't even, there's a lot of the restaurants by the river, just about 6 foot of water in them. And it's terrible. And then after the water recedes and they're expecting it to do some by the weekend, there is just going to be a nasty mess. The Ohio River is not the cleanest river out there. So, yeah, there's going to be a big old mess. Ginger, are you doing okay? Is everything okay? Hopefully. But that Ohio River, I wouldn't eat nothing that came out of there. No telling what's down there. There's probably cars and weapons and stuff like that. So, they have an event over in Louisville that they call Good Ginger. I'm so glad. They have an event over in Louisville called Thunder Over Louisville where they set off enough fireworks to feed umpteen homeless people, and they can't have it because it's all flooded, what they call the Great Lawn, and people are having cat fits. Well, if you can't, then what's so sad, guys, a little boy, I think it was Thursday or Friday, was going out to wait on the bus, and he was taken under by a flood. Now, why they didn't close that school, that's crazy. If that'd been me and if that was my kid, I said, he ain't going nowhere. But yeah, an innocent little child was killed by that. But yeah, there's a lot of flooding. Anything that runs along the Ohio River is just destined to be flooded. So, but then they had the tornadoes that tore up everything. Yeah, it is. It's bad. They had the tornadoes and then all the rain and then the flooding. They're trying to focus on the flood right now and try to. I think one of the restaurants there in Louisville flooded. Added some clear water in with the water that was there, so it wouldn't be a big old mess once the waters recede. Oh, gross! Can you imagine the gunk that's going to be everywhere? But yeah, that little kid, he drowned. It's terrible. And a lot of times they have barricades up and oh yeah. I don't know what they think with over there, but and you get people that'll drive through high water and go around a barricade. Here's what I'd do. If they called 911, I'd send help, but I'd have a police when they towed them into the bank, a police officer would be there with a ticket for them for going around a road block, and then that let them submit it to their insurance company, and they wouldn't get a dime. I mean, people do not exercise common sense. Now, you don't drive through water where you can't see the bottom, and it's people will do something Like I said, if they would ticket these people, that would stop. And the insurance company says, let me read it. You drove through around a barricade. Well, guess what? You're not eligible to have your car repaired because you knew better and you could read. And we're not paying for your stupidity. And I hate to say it like that and be that way, but my gosh, they got to do something to keep people in line or they'll do no telling what. But yeah, they should when they get, because they've got enough to do. The EMS has enough to do with rescuing people from this flood that it wasn't their fault than to come and get somebody from something they know better. Oh yeah. Uh-oh. Tickets and take points away from their license. Here in Nebraska, 12 points and you lose your license. Whoa, wow. Yeah, they're going to have to do something because, like they said, don't do it because the paramedics and the rescue teams have more to do than to get you out of a mess after you did it to yourself. You know what I mean? But yeah, a lot of this stuff it's silly. That's why here in Henryville for a long time they didn't have those bars that go down over the to block from cars from getting on the tracks. And this one lady she was on some kind of drug and there was two little kids in the back seat and she tried to beat the train and the train hit the area on the back seat and killed those children. And then they put up the little barriers, the little that go down. But isn't it a shame that, people have to die or innocent little children have to die and they charge you a hefty fee if you were stuck in a flooded road, they rescue you. Yeah, and they should be, but they're the mother. Two little babies' lives was lost because of her. She was on something, and she's in prison right now. She shouldn't have gotten out there, and the two little kids were killed. I don't see how she escaped being killed. Yeah, they should. If a flood's coming, get out of there. It's not worth it. Sometimes water can be rapidly moving and it can suck you down underneath before you know what's going on, and it's really dangerous. It's like these people that chase these storms. I wouldn't do that. uh-uh you're supposed to be in your basement or the lowest level of your house in between two structures without windows. So, yeah, it's people do the darndest things. And they did cancel Thunder over Louisville. It's the largest firework display in North America. And they said people lost out on money. Well, I'm sure that they made up for it. And I think a relative of mine's wife was all tore up. And you know why? Because she couldn't go down there and drink and carouse. That's what her problem was. Really? Someone's life is worth far more than a fireworks show, I would think. No wonder I stay to myself because the family, they're too wild for me, trust me. So, yeah, people like that because they can get out there and drink and carry on and do no telling what else. And there's always next year. Why don't they invest that money in something to help the homeless the homeless or the veterans or something like that. I'm not saying that it's wrong to have a fireworks display, but you can't imagine all those two bridges, they set up fireworks, and they have fireworks that are synchronized on barges, and it's right on the Ohio River. But I mean, that's, they want to keep people safe, and that's only, well, just like during the pandemic, they had to really get on people and keep them in because they didn't have enough sense to wear a mask. And when people won't do as they're asked, then you just close things down and ain't got nowhere to go. But yeah, it's well, you guys know what happened. There was a lot of things closed down, and that's interesting. I wonder during the pandemic, the resellers, I don't know if, I think the post offices were, I'm not for sure were open, but they were not running. I bet that was a very interesting time to be a reseller back in that day. So, because the first thing they do is close everything down. But yeah, we want to keep praying for Minnie. I'm not for sure what her current, if I think she's getting better, but she still needs prayer. We need to pray for Brian, the flood victims, and that a tornado hit, and then then they had to deal with the flood. So they're going through a lot. A lot of those roads are closed over there. So let's go ahead and go to the Lord in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity to come into this chat and speak about such things as your resurrection, and what a great privilege it is to think about how that you so loved the world that you sent your son to die for all of us. Lord, be with Minnie as she recuperates from her illness. Be with her and comfort her through the days to come. And also be with Brian to help him with his sciatica and help bring him some pain relief as he goes through his day with the pain of sciatica. And I want to pray for the people over there in Kentucky where flooding has just about destroyed everything, as well as tornadoes. Be with the people over there, comfort their hearts, and relieve their minds as they recover from this great disaster. It's all these things that I pray in your precious, precious name. Amen. Alrighty then, guys. Wonder what I did with that. I'll have to find it. But anyway, I'm so glad you guys were here. You guys are indeed a blessing to me. You guys mean a lot to me. Of course, you guys know that. And Ginger, I didn't mean to be so staunch when I was talking about the ark and stuff like that, but I knew you was going to ask that, Ginger. My next auction is going to be, I think it's going to be on another person's channel. I believe it's April the 24th. And I know that's a long way off. And I will be on with Tooch Man. And I will, I'll let you guys know, and I'll drop the link in my community post. I love you too, Ginger, but I didn't want you to think I was snapping at you about that. But I just get so wound up when it comes to, people trying to take away the glory from God. And I love you too, Ginger. You guys have a great rest of your day. And I'll catch you later. And next auction is April 24th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard. And I will drop the link to the show that it's going to be in my community tab. I'll keep you updated. There could be a haul in between. We never know. So you guys have a good rest of your day, and I will catch you later. Bye bye, and thank you for being here. Love you guys.